Welcome. This is Our Android Week with Alan Furstenberg in New York, Bruce Turner in Lynchburg, Virginia, Duke Carrico in Kingsport, Tennessee, Thaddeus Kalute in Newport Beach, California, and in Menifee, California, Pam Adler. This is Our Android Week. Good to have you with us. I'm Dan McDermott, the host. Alan, what's the deal with the snow in New York? Or have you been outside?
It's snowing.
Are you hunkering down? This is the big one, according to the mayor. But you're not in the city.
It's snowing.
Okay. It's snowing here, too. We have almost an inch.
We're having a big rainstorm, so there's so much water on the ground right now. It is.
So we're obviously not going to be on the Weather Channel anytime soon. We're not hyping this up enough, clearly. Okay, so that happened. Alan is somehow still alive. All right, next up is, or our first topic tonight is a review of the Sony Smartwatch 3. They use the term the best of the first, which is, you know, of the early versions, this one's the better or the least bad kind of thing. You guys both use Android Wear. What do you? Any thoughts on this watch?
This is the dumbest review I've ever seen.
Okay. Even better than my weather forecast?
Basically, it spends 3 pages saying, yeah, the watch may come from Sony, but, you know, Sony had absolutely nothing to do with it. So it's really a review of Android Wear while constantly saying this is just like every other Android Wear watch. It's a dumb review. Your thoughts, Cadeas?
I think the watch is ugly, and I'm not interested in it. I mean, it's Android Wear. I mean, they didn't do anything that would make it any different than what we already have. So.
Okay, so that goes to our next topic, entitled 1 Month with Android Wear. And actually didn't have the Sony watch, but they played with the Moto 360, the LG G, the LG GR, and some others, I think. What I got from it was that first of all, the battery life isn't there. I think the best one that they reviewed was like 7 hours of actually, using it. And you guys can correct that if it's wrong. And he said that it's great if you were like a salesman out on the road all day and you want notifications, it's great for that, not much else. If you are at your home office most of the time and your computer's here and your phone's there really isn't a big need for this for an Android Wear device. So do you want to add anything or tell me where that's wrong, or what are your thoughts, Cadeas?
Well, I don't know why you would use Android Wear for 7 hours continuously, because that's not what the platform's designed to do. It's mainly notifications. So you're just supposed to, I mean, you're not playing a video game or watching a movie on the watch. So 7 hours is pretty good just for glanceable notifications.
That's not even a work day.
I would emphasize more than just notifications, but it's a glanceable device. And people who don't understand that, which amounts to, 90% of the people who are developing for it and use it right now, miss out on why this is actually a useful device.
Question.
And then you're 7 hours. Then you're saying 7 hours, but you remember that 7 hours of constant use. So if you're glancing to see, I got a text, or glancing.
I don't think we're playing Castle Wolfenstein on this thing for 7 hours. I think what we're doing is like, using it like normal. You got to notify. Oh, okay, I got to call the wife and bring the groceries.
Well, if you remember, back when the firmware was bad on the Moto 360, I usually would get a day and a half out of it.
Oh, okay. And you were actually using it.
I get. Yeah.
Because when I get a Hangout,
and that was back when it was bad. So now it's been improved.
Because when I get a Hangout call, it doesn't quite ring on enough devices. I need some more devices. Alan, anything else on this?
What? You don't trust Cadeas?
No, I just, I don't want you to feel left out. Okay, so they're holding on. The two glass guys, one has a Nexus Q, and they're still hanging on with this Android Wear stuff. I don't see a need for it personally. I mean, I think I was excited about them, but I don't know. I haven't been motivated yet. But I'm still using my Note 2. I haven't been motivated to get a new phone. So
Well,
anyway,
what do you mean you're not motivated?
I don't see a real need for an Android Wear device.
You probably barely see a need for a mobile phone.
I can download apps to it.
What do you freaking do?
No, no, I use my phone. But with
Do
the
you use
way
your
now
phone when you're sitting next?
they're so integrated now that I could literally leave my phone in my car overnight or all day and probably not miss anything because I can make phone calls, I get my hangout notifications. The only thing,
So, so,
even
so what
SMS
you're telling me
photos
is that
now.
if you're sitting next to your PC, you don't need your phone.
If I'm anywhere in my home, I don't need my phone.
And
Okay, so that's
remember,
exactly what
Alan,
I'm
he
saying
doesn't
here.
go anywhere either. So you got to remember that too.
I haven't left here in 12 days. No, I'm just kidding. Um, no, but I have a photo shoot, do a video tomorrow morning or noon in Winchester, and so I'll bring my phone.
Why don't you just leave it at home because it's useless?
It's useless. I don't need it inside the home, but outside. Normally, I just play CNN. I have CNN running the whole time, live TV in my car, and
So you're saying that your phone has some uses,
yeah.
but
But
they're very specific and narrow uses.
I'm not.
Thank you. Next subject.
Not it has far more uses than an Android. I'm not trashing Android Wear. I'm just saying personally, I have not been motivated to buy one yet.
No, you're just saying you have no understanding of why you'd want it, and I can make the exact same case for you using a phone. Next subject.
Okay, so we'll agree to disagree. Um, this one is talking about the Google Play Edition program. The take that they took with it was "Don't cry for the Google Play Edition program. It was already dead." And basically, they said they only released them in the U.S. and the U.S. is very subsidy happy. And had they released them overseas, it might have been a different story. Maybe not. What do you think, Alan?
I guess they're making a distinction between the Google Play Edition phones and the Nexus line for some strange reason. Um, I don't know. My guess is that the Google Play Edition phones barely sold, but that the I think that's pretty much what it boiled down to. The Google Play Edition phones barely sold.
What is the difference between?
I mean, I'll look at it this way. I try. I had pulled out my OnePlus One this weekend, and someone asked me what it was. I told them, and a pile of other people standing around us asked what it was and where they could get it. And when I said that no, you couldn't buy it from a carrier, you bought it directly, everyone stopped being interested. That's just the nature of how we deal with cell phones in the U.S. market. We're a pack of idiots.
But I
Well, the
mean, some of
carriers
us
did
don't
a
have a
really good
choice,
job
though.
taking over. So, and everyone's brainwashed to believe they got to go through the carrier. So anything outside the carrier, people are thinking, oh, well, it's not covered, or oh,
Well,
like
actually, more what it boils down to is, oh, I don't get support for this phone. Because what they can do is, if they have a problem with their phone, they can go to their carrier, they can go to a kiosk, and their carrier will help them walk through whatever problems they have. You don't get that in other general cases.
They replaced it. My Note 2 was screwed up, and I went to the battery. Then I just went to the store. They just gave me a new battery. I didn't sign anything or pay anything at the local Sprint store. And then when it was acting up bad, I called them and they said, "Okay, we'll send you another one." They sent me a refurb unit that was great, and it was like a brand new phone. You wouldn't get that with this stuff. I guess. Can you get insurance like Assurian or whatever it is? Is that an option for a phone that you're buying when you buy it? To pay $11 a month or whatever?
usually the insurance company would still cover the phone, but they're going to send you some. So, like if Alan had his OnePlus One and something went wrong with it, they would send him like a um, I don't even S5 instead. So if his OnePlus One broke, they would still cover it. He won't get another OnePlus One.
Okay.
He'd just get a Galaxy S5 or whatever's equivalent to it.
And do all the carriers? I know Sprint does not support these, bring your own device options, and so I can't use one. I've looked at. I mean, I was excited, and I asked them, and they said you have to get a Sprint phone to be on Sprint, and that's the only carrier that works in my rural area. But I'm an edge case, admittedly so. Um, but I know T-Mobile supports these. Can you also use Verizon or AT&T?
AT&T, yes. Verizon and Sprint, no, because of the technology.
So it's a CDMA
You know, the other thing
versus
that this
whatever.
article points out, though, Dan, is that for a large part, the Google Play editions aren't necessary anymore. Most manufacturers are releasing stuff that's closer to the native look and feel, which is part of the point of the Play edition. And for those that didn't, you could increasingly just download the Google component from the Play Store instead of using the native piece of crap. So more and more it became unnecessary.
Yeah, they were saying, I guess, the keyboard, you can download the Google keyboard or Nexus,
You can now
whichever it is.
download the Google keyboard, the Google camera, just about every of the major components. You can get the Google edition of it from the Play Store these days.
Remind me, what was the difference between the Nexus line and the Google Play edition? If any?
One was from Google, the other one wasn't.
So there's no difference other than the name.
Really?
So, like for example, you can get the Nexus 4, the Nexus 5, I think it was at the time, for $300, or you can get like all the on their phone in addition to the Google edition, in
Right.
addition to the Google way of doing things.
Your internet sucks, Cadeas.
I don't know why.
And you're rich. He owns everything. All right. Okay, so there we go. So it's basically like the Sears 2600 is not going to be sold anymore, but the Atari 2600 is still for sale. Dating myself there. Okay, so next up on software. This was an interesting story. I remember I first heard about the Waze app when it was Bruce Turner's app of the week, and I downloaded it. I don't use it regularly because I don't speed and I know where I'm going because I don't really go on long trips a lot. But if I were like Cadeas or Alan and they're frequently, going on trips for business or what have you, then I absolutely use the Waze app because it's you got navigation in there. But basically, the biggest feature that I like is it tells you where there's a speed trap just in case. I typically don't speed, but you want to be on extra alert if you know there's a cop up ahead. So anyway, the Sheriff's Association, including a sheriff I've covered before, Mike Brown in Bedford County, Virginia, at the National Sheriff's Association meeting, they were critical of Google, saying that it's irresponsible of them that this makes cops sitting ducks. I think a similar thing happened with Apple, and now Apple, you're not allowed to have a similar feature in an app on iOS unless it's a DUI checkpoint, unless the police had already released that information publicly, as they often do, but not always. And so now they're going after Google, and there was a story that there were some reports that the guy used Waze to locate the two cops on December 20th that were shot in New York City, but that's likely untrue because I don't know if they were there for 2 hours and he had ditched his phone 2 hours prior to the shooting. So that Waze probably got a bum rap, but I could totally see if someone were looking for a cop, this is one way to shoot. This is one way that they could locate the cop. So they spent $1 billion for Waze. I think this is probably the main reason people use the app. So you're talking about, you can sell the phone, but you can't make phone calls, and nobody's going to buy your phone. So what do you think, Alan?
With all due respect to police organizations everywhere, horse hockey. This is the dumbest argument, one of the dumbest arguments I've ever heard from a law enforcement agency. Let's face it, if Google took that feature out, somebody else would create an app that that did the same thing. That
It'll
lets you
probably be
predict where cops were.
In fact, there were other apps, but they kind of died because I think Waze took over the market. Everyone liked Waze. They did it better because they had the social integration and stuff. And that's why Google bought them for $1 billion. And to say, I want to take the integral part of your app that your $1 billion, and just basically they say they want Google to throw away $1 billion because who's going to use the Waze app now?
No, it's not what they're saying. I mean, I get what they're saying. I don't even disagree with it on some fundamental level. But, this argument has been going on now for decades. This goes all the way back to when CB radios were the hot thing. And the Supreme Court has ruled that it's perfectly legal to say where the hell the cops are sitting.
Because they're certainly in a public place. Cadeas, what do you think?
No comment. I have a lot to say, so no comment.
See, usually if we force him when he says that, it's usually really juicy stuff he says. Okay. Google issues an official response to concerns over Jelly Bean WebView security. I have no idea what the hell this is about. Hopefully Alan does, and while he does that, I'm going to check for any comments. So there.
Well, the reason why Dan doesn't know is because he doesn't actually watch either this show or Friday night's show, where we talked about this at least twice so far.
There's a difference between watch and recall. Remember, I'm like a fish. Every 2 minutes, I forget everything I've ever learned. So with that, you may continue. Sorry.
So to refresh Dan the fish and all of the other fish out there that watch our shows, basically, as Google has been spending a lot of time giving the big middle finger to Apple and Microsoft about bugs that they've been neglectant in fixing in current operating systems and slightly old operating systems, they've been doing the exact same thing with Android 4.3. There's a bug in the WebView component that is a reasonably dangerous bug that a malicious application could take advantage of. Google's official response to why they had, well, Google's official response is that they're not going to fix it, that they've already fixed it, and that was known as Android 4.4, and that application developers should be more careful with how they use this component to make sure that they don't have any vulnerabilities in it. All of this are the stupidest replies to this subject I have ever seen. Google should get off their tail and fix the goddamn bug and ship it out, and the carrier should get off their goddamn tail and ship fixes for the goddamn bug. The problem is that carriers are a pack of idiots with no vested interest in wanting to make this fix. So if this holds the feet to the carriers and Google's, if that holds their feet to the fire, good, because they should fix the damn thing already. Any thoughts, Cadeas?
Well, why do you blame Google if we already know the carriers won't?
Because Google didn't fix it!
But Google did fix it with 4.4.
Oh!
Just update the newest software. That's it. Problem solved.
So I can update this phone to Android 4.4 and it'll be all fixed?
Cool.
That
I can
phone is
update
supposed
my
to be in the
Motorola
trash,
Photon.
Alan.
What was that, Cadeas?
That phone is supposed to be in the trash.
This phone is supposed to be patched?
No,
This
in the
phone?
trash. That
Why
phone's
should this
supposed
phone be trashed? Why?
because it's so old.
It's 2 fucking years old. That's not
Exactly.
so old.
Support is only for 18 months. Come on now.
Yeah, but I didn't get so I didn't get the release for 4.4 for this. Why didn't I get the release?
Because the release came out after your 18 months.
Oh, so an 18-month-old phone is considered ancient and should be thrown into the landfill.
Yes.
That's bullshit.
And yet we criticize the
That's how
sub,
it is.
and yet we criticize the subsidy mindset where everyone gets a new phone every 2 years and the carriers, and that's how they afford it. A lot of people can't afford it. They're still buying these burner phones. I know people who are, like young people. A friend of mine, her 3 kids stayed here with her sister, and I think, if anything, they had burner phones.
You know what? I mean, here's the thing, Cadeas. I can understand this phone not getting the update to 5. That's fine. 5 sucks down a massive amount of resources and is an incredible pig. And yet they've got 5 running on this phone. You can get the CyanogenMod version that runs on this phone for 5.
Alan, elaborate on that, because when they came out with KitKat, they were bragging about how that they'd minimize that and they would run better on lower-end devices in emerging nations and.
Yeah, but then they didn't release a version for their own flagship phone at the time, or their own previous flagship phone. The Galaxy Nexus didn't get an upgrade to Android 4.4, despite them saying it would run well on low-end devices.
Okay.
So, it's great for Google to say, oh, just upgrade to 4.4, but they don't do it for their own damn phone. I'm sorry, that's bullshit.
Okay. So Alan's pissed. I don't know if you knew that, but. Okay.
No, I was pissed about this. And I was extremely pissed about this. I've gotten over it. But when they make stupid statements like that.
Didn't you get it free? Didn't Google give you that phone?
Google gave me that phone for me attending a conference. Yes.
Okay, so you are literally you can look a gift horse in the mouth.
No, Dan, And I got over, like I said, I got over it. I got over it. I got a new phone, and that was fine. And it's plugged in charging at the moment. Okay? I don't have a problem with that. What I have a problem with right now is Google making two contradictory statements. One is, oh, everybody who was running 4.3 should have updated to 4.4, and that has the security fix, on one hand. And on the other hand, saying, oh, but we are not going to upgrade our own phone from 4.3 to 4.4.
And isn't that the big allure of the Nexus phones?
That's
the big
bullshit about this.
Wasn't that the big point of Nexus? You'll get the latest version quicker because it's coming right from Google.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. A2. All right. So next is this is a long read, but an enjoyable and very interesting read. And basically, it's talking about it's entitled how Apple used iPhone 5s to sabotage every 2015 Android smartphone. Obviously, a clickbait title, but it's by this guy Ewan Spence, who I really like. We should get him on the show sometime. He writes a lot of good stuff. So he's saying he's talking about how the A7 chip. It was the first 64-bit processor of any smartphone out there, and he talks about how Android kind of stumbled to, or still stumbling to catch up. That Apple, in the same way that the airlines hedge fuel prices to prepare, that Apple basically like bought all the 64-bit chips for years. And I just found this really interesting. It is a long read, but and then Samsung, I guess, like the video processor, the Snapdragon 810 isn't really going to come out, and that the S5 was going to be 64-bit, but now isn't. And so Craig Shipp always trolls me about how iPhones are better, and I'm like, whatever. You like the Cowboys and I like the Redskins, and this, but it's hard to argue with them on the physical hardware. So Alan, what do you think? I mean, is it double the speed, or is this much ado about
No, it's not double the
something?
speed. In fact, most of the time when you make the switch from 32-bit to 64-bit architecture, things slow down. So there's no correlation between the speed of the chip and the number of bits in the chip. That's a red herring. The fact that the Apple's A7 might have been faster than their A6, that's relevant, but that's nothing to do with some magical moving to 64-bit. In fact, the entire article doesn't actually say what the big deal about 64-bit is, for a really good reason. There is none, at least not as far as a phone is concerned. You're laughing, Cadeus. What are your thoughts?
No, I was agreeing with you that there's no real big difference right now.
So this is
no
like,
one's really building towards it.
So it's like one guy has 128 gigs of RAM and you have 64 gigs of RAM, and he's bragging about it, but really there's no difference.
No, it's even more bizarre than that, because you can make an argument that more RAM is good for when you run more apps. You can't make the argument that 64 bits are good if you're doing something. I mean, 64 bits are good for addressing larger memory models. They're good for addressing larger numeric models. So if you're doing large graphical computing, for example, 64 bits might have a slight advantage over 32 bits. But we're not talking that. We're not talking massive size displays here. So the advantages of 64-bit over 32-bit are fairly modest.
Well, I'm going to play this back if Craig trolls me again about this.
I mean, the real issue with what they pulled off with the 5S was the thumbprint scanner. And all the news is around today that the reason why the Moto X didn't have a thumbprint scanner is because Moto was going to be buying it from a company that Apple suddenly bought. That's more what Apple has done to the Android ecosystem, not the 64-bit chip. It's sort of like this. if you're looking at phones, or if you're looking at anything, 64-bit sounds more impressive than 32-bit, but it's just a feature. It's not a, there's nothing practical behind it. So it's more a buzzword than anything real. And for those of you watching, Dan has now wandered off camera, so he can't even pick back up on the end of this story and move on to one that's even vaguely more interesting. Not that I think the next one is, but...
Well, Craig Ship, he's our occasional Google Plus Week panelist, and he's the biggest Apple fanboy out there. Anyway, he sent this. I saw these stories. iPhone users are smarter than Android users, study says. Everybody, CNN, they're all running this, right? So if you actually, I clicked to the actual study, and it's very short. It's not that big a deal. It says that it looks at iPhone usage rates by state. It says, despite iPhones remaining the largest source of smartphone internet traffic in North America, our latest study finds a relatively high degree of variation of iPhone usage rates on a state-by-state basis. And it says basically they correlated with education level and population density. Then it shows you here, and it varies from 40 to 44% is the light green areas like Texas and New Mexico and Arizona, and the very high areas, 55 to 65%, are basically just a few states. New England here, New York, looks like Mississippi, and Kansas and Montana. But they said that the main argument was that all these guys were saying that the iPhone, if you have a college degree, they're saying that you're smarter. And I don't know if you could say that. I don't know if that's fair to say that some guy with a degree who's waiting tables and $70,000 in student loans and he can't find a job that matches his degree is necessarily smarter than Bill Gates, who dropped out of college. Do you think iPhone users are smarter than Android users based on this study, Alan? Do you think that's a fair statement?
Well, based on the study, I mean, what they say, there's a number of redundancy and very poor statistics here, but one of the things they point out is that iPhone usage rates correlated with population density. So if you live in a more urban area, you're more likely to use an iPhone. So is Craig saying that people who live in cities are smarter than people like him who don't? Silence. Since Craig's not here to
that was
attempt
the two
to...
things. That was one, that and whether your education level. I think a lot of people get degrees who don't need a degree and end up, I just think everyone...
His education level also tends to correlate to urban areas.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. I'm surprised Mississippi's on this high iPhone usage. That's surprising to me. But looking at the other states, Kansas I could see. Montana was a shock. New England's not a shock. But the Mississippi would be in the highest of the, maybe 8 states there that are the most adoptive of iPhones. That Mississippi would be among them. I found surprising. And Alaska. Talk about not dense.
Reading through this, I noticed that large chunks of the Midwest are low or very low. So is Craig saying that normal people don't use iPhones?
Another thing that pisses me off, just going back to this thing, because we're all West Wing fans, and I remember the episode, The Big Block of Cheese Day, they talked about map inaccuracy. Look at the size of Alaska. Alaska is about the size of the other 48, or the 48 contiguous states there. They got it small, like smaller than Texas. It's as big as all those other states you see. So I just wanted to throw that out there. It's the size of Australia. People think Australia is tiny. It's the size of the 48 U.S. states. Population's a lot less. But anyway, obviously they're not an Android topic. But anytime we can mention Big Block of Cheese Day.
And speaking of government, I just added this topic because we talked about it briefly on Friday. What world leaders use for their phones?
There you go. Cool. What do we see here? Go ahead, Alan.
So this was some interesting stuff that we talked about this briefly on Friday, because we went wondering what Russian, well, because the story was that Putin was giving a Yoda phone to the Chinese leader, um, although he apparently seems to like the iPhone, even though he may not be using it much all the time. So he's an iPhone guy. I'll let Craig think about that one for a few minutes. Um,
Obama's still
North
stuck
Korea.
on the BlackBerry, right?
What was that?
President Obama's still stuck on the BlackBerry, right?
Let me go. Let me go look at his entry. I forgot about that one.
Yeah, I
Um,
think he's first
I'm
there.
still
So
clinging
he's
to my BlackBerry was a quote from him. So yes,
POTUS uses a BlackBerry. Merkel's a Nokia Slide. Is that? Oh my God! Is that like a feature phone? I assume it's got a keyboard, right? Maybe it's
no.
got neat security features. All these guys need to be concerned with security, obviously.
Well, yes and no. They're more worried about security now that it's been found out that the U.S. spies on them.
Nawaz Sharif there in Pakistan looks like he's got a pretty small phone. He likes iPhones and Samsungs, but that's looks like a burner phone from Walmart there. So Putin's,
Very bold.
we don't know what Putin uses. So yeah,
Francois Hollande also uses an iPhone. I'm sure that will make Craig very excited to hear.
so I see Kim Jong Un. I watched it. I didn't finish it, but I watched that movie on Netflix. Craig said it was funnier than he was expecting because it got trolled by the critics. I didn't. I found it okay, but I found it a silly, dumb, juvenile humor movie, slightly worth watching if you were high or something. It'd be hilarious, I imagine. So Italy is more than just an iPhone user. He's an Apple devotee who had once himself had photographed beside an Apple sign at the entrance of the company's headquarters. So I guess that's an endorsement. Cool. I bet he wasn't a fan of Steve Jobs' wardrobe. The Italian suits were not well treated at Apple. All right, so awesome. Shout out to Brad at techwebcast.info who's watching us. Probably he's just tweeting that he's watching us to get a shout out. You think he's really watching us, Alan? um,
He probably is. I think it says we have at least one watcher.
I think we're not in double digits for sure. But anyway, all right. So last check for comments here. Anything coming up on Google Plus Week?
Oh, you can bet on it.
We'll be discussing the latest tech news. Cadeas, any final thing, or did you want to talk about smartphones used by world leaders? I know Cadeas is really into politics. It's hard to pry him away from that and get him to talk about tech. Okay, so thank you all very much for watching. We have two programs. This program, which is Our Android Week, which is every Monday at 9-ish Eastern, 6-ish Pacific, 9 Eastern, 6 Pacific, Monday nights, Our Android Week, where we discuss all things Android. Our other program is called Google Plus Week, the longest running show on Google Plus. And one fun time. It's that is every Friday. Google Plus Week is Friday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 Pacific, 8:30 Eastern, 5:30 Pacific, and every Saturday I'm on the Virginia Talk Radio Network talking about the big story of the week, and that's not usually tech; it's news. I actually talk about news. So just follow me or whatever, or Google Virginia Talk Radio Network. That's Saturdays at 11:07 a.m. Eastern. That's the only thing I do that's on time, right after CBS News. Can't be late. 11:07 a.m. Eastern every Saturday at VirginiaTalkRadioNetwork.com. Thank you all for watching. We appreciate it. Thanks for. We got more comments on the test video than the real one. I don't know what that tells us.
I think that tells us a lot. What did they say on the test video? Read those comments.
Why is it grayed out? Was one, and the other one was there was no thumbnail, and I said I accidentally released that. I didn't mean to make it public, and one of the guys said it's always nice to see my virtual friends rehearsing, so that's nice. Nice sentiment there. So anyway, thank you for watching our test video. We'll be testing again Friday and Monday. So anyway, until next time, have an epic, awesome, badass Google Plus week. Cheer or Android week. Yikes.